You revealed two heavily guarded secrets here.
Initially, I didn't know what I was doing. So I positioned myself as an AI expert, and I'll put myself up against anybody. I understand how it works at the data center, all the way to the latest and greatest tools like Sora 2. I give them shorts to use. I keep in contact with them because now they're in my database.
How do you use podcasts to network with people you want to work with?
That's an easy one. So let's say
Mark Fidelman is a Chief Revenue and Marketing Officer with 14 years leading growth in AI, blockchain, and e-commerce, driving 7 successful token launches and over $1 billion in revenue through tech-powered marketing and innovation.
I'm very much in tune for what the audience wants. If you look at a Venn diagram, what the audience wants, what I want, and what the guest can provide. If they all meet in the middle, I try to bring them on as quick as possible and build the relationships.
What's the main benefit that you got out of podcasting for that many years?
Well, revenue is number one. Number two is
Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Mark, can you tell me your podcast story, please?
Oh, yes. Well, I've got plenty, but I look at podcasts a little bit differently than maybe you do. I look at it as a chance to meet people I want to work with. So that's primarily what I do with podcasts. Secondly, I force myself to learn about the subject because I don't want to appear any stupider than I am. That's the other aspect of it. So if I want to learn about something or I want to meet people in that industry, I do a podcast about it. So I've done 3 or 4. The one that I'm really focused on now is called AI marketing. If we're just talking about audio, I have a whole video series as well, but audio podcast called AI marketing.
What's the story of AI marketing? You're doing this to meet people, and then what?
Well, I'm writing a book right now called Agentized. It's in the AI space. I have a prestigious client that's doing AI data centers that I'm working with. In terms of the future, AI is the future. So it forces me to learn, like I just did a podcast on Sora 2, and it forces me to learn Sora 2. And inevitably, I have guests on the podcast that could either hire me or promote my book or to do something that's beneficial to me as well, while giving them a platform to speak on. So everyone benefits, and the listener benefits because they're getting great information that they're not hearing from anywhere else.
How do you use podcasts to network with people you want to work with? What do you mean by that?
That's an easy one. So let's say I had a marketing agency and I wanted to meet new clients. Well, you could do the cold calling thing. You could reach out to people on LinkedIn. The whole thing that is very challenging. Or you could just go to the companies you want to work with and invite their CMO or CEO on a podcast, and they're getting exposure. You're getting to build a relationship with this individual, and then who knows what will come of it. Not everyone turns into something, but if you're smart about it on your podcast, you're digging into their pain points, and guess what? Maybe some of those pain points you or your agency solves. That's just one example. I've got many.
You're doing that for AI marketing?
Correct.
What other podcast did you do where you had that strategy?
I've done it for crypto. I've done it for tokenization, and I've done it for totally unrelated matter. We help people going through a divorce. I run a charity called Kids Matter. I don't know about where you're from, but in the United States, it's a total shit show here in terms of going to family court, and everyone loses except for the attorneys.
It's funny you said that. I don't think I've ever talked about it on the podcast, but my parents divorced when I was 10 years old, and the divorce procedure took 10 years for multiple reasons. So I'm very much aware of how much of a shit show it can be. And lawyers make a lot of money on that. Okay, so you have a marketing agency, you target CMOs of people you want to work with. Break that down for us. Like, how do you approach the people, you're like, hey, come be a guest on my show. Then you talk about their pain points on the podcast. And what do you do then?
A virtual assistant to do that. I'm training an AI virtual assistant to do it pretty soon, but it'll research the person's information. It'll email them, contact them on LinkedIn. The AI or, my virtual assistant will look at what they do, what they're interested, where they've been together, what they've been talking about online before, and then put that into some sort of a pitch, a podcast pitch, no cost, obviously. We love what you did here, and here, and we want you to come talk about it on the podcast, and we've got 3,500 downloads every time we do. So a good chance for you, Mr. CMO or Ms. CEO, to showcase what it is your company's doing or what you're doing, as long as it involves AI.
So that's the process to guest on the show and to potentially work with them. You're still getting 25 to 3,500 downloads per episode, right? As you just mentioned. So there is also an audience building, brand building exercise behind it, because that, by the way, this is in the higher end of like the top percentiles of podcasts getting downloads. Like most podcasts are not even getting 100 downloads. So how do you network properly? So focus the conversation on the guest, all whilst building an audience and providing value to them?
Well, first of all, I'm very much in tune for what the audience wants. If you look at a Venn diagram, what the audience wants, what I want, and what the guest can provide. And then if they all meet in the middle, I try to bring them on as quick as possible and build a relationship. So it's not just what's going on in the podcast or what happens before and after the podcast that gives them an idea of how professional you are, right? I don't just give up the relationship after the podcast is over. I give them shorts to use. I keep in contact with them because now they're in my database and they're all part of my marketing drip campaign. Inevitably, they either have a pain point now that I could solve, or maybe 2 years from now, they have a pain point that needs solving. Think of me first. But, the topic I'm covering is on everyone's mind, right? And I position myself as an AI expert, and I'll put myself up against anybody. I understand the background, how it works at the data center, all the way to the latest and greatest tools like Sora 2. And if you aren't using that, everyone should be.
100%. And Sora 2 just got absolutely crazy. It's not perfect yet. And that's what a lot of people are saying. They're like, oh, but it's not like completely fooling me yet. I'm like, yeah, did you look at how it was like a year ago, literally? Like, this is going so freaking fast.
They get the dialogue right. I'd say about 25%. They get me right. It's just the scenes, it's hit or miss still. But, you're going to be able to edit at the frame level on these things in the future.
What's the business behind it? So you have the podcast. Clearly, you're very intentional, right, about the podcast that you're running, how you're running it at the intersection of providing value to the audience, making sure this brings value to your business as well by interviewing people you could do business with. What's that business behind? Like, what do you do?
Oh, so I'm a fractional CMO. So I come in on Web3, AI, tokenization projects, e-commerce. I kind of draw the limit there. I've almost done everything. I've been around long enough. But those are the 3 or 4 areas I like to be in because I really enjoy it and I'm very passionate about it.
How do you help them? And then I'd like us to tie this back to the podcast, being like, hey, this is a strategy that people can, inspire themselves from based on what you're doing. So what's the offer and who are you offering it to?
So are you talking about the people that appear on my podcast or just my clients?
No, here I'm trying to understand a bit better what's your business. So like fractional CMO, I saw that you had Exhibits AI, or is that where you're the CMO of? Like, what's the business behind the podcast?
The podcast is kind of the top of the funnel stuff, right?
Yeah.
The bottom of the funnel is me building relationships with these people and then getting them into some sort of what I call a CMO office situation where I come in as their CMO. I bring my team, or I look for experts that help fulfill the team. And then whatever it is, if it's tokenization, if it's AI, or if it's e-commerce, on top of all 3 of these areas, and I bring in the best and the brightest, and depending on what their goals are, we execute on those goals.
So you've launched many podcasts. What were the main challenges that you faced when you built those podcasts and to make sure that they were also bringing value to your business? What are the main challenges that you would like to talk about? And how did you walk around them, obviously, so people can learn from it?
Initially, I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm like, I was doing it for educational purposes and to get my name out there, right? Because the amount of offers I get is probably 10x what normal people get just because I'm putting myself out there a lot. And, I like people coming to me, not me going to them. It just, you'll be much happier that way. Life is easier. My whole approach with podcasts, if that's your question, is to do something that educates me, puts my brand out there, and brings me clients. And I forgot the other aspect of your question.
What are some of the challenges that you face? So now, obviously, you're used to the exercise, right? But in the earlier days of your podcast, what were the challenges that you faced and how did you walk around them?
Well, getting an audience, clearly. I mean, I was in subjects that were so arcane that nobody knew a thing about them. So I had to then discover, okay, where can I start and then bring them more into this circle of whether it's crypto or tokenization or AI, where can I start and then start narrowing it after you're educating this audience. So that was a nightmare figuring that out, because I was at the 100 download range for a long time, and then you see a few episodes that just take off for whatever. You're like, I didn't market this any better, but they just take off. And it turns out a lot of times it was bringing on guests with a large audience. So then I focused on influencers, and I focused on, but that kind of tops out depending on how much they promote it. But I find the number one lesson learned was just finding topics that are top of mind for my target audience at this moment in time. So it's, again, if you go back to a Venn diagram, if you can get all those three right with a great guest, your podcasts are going to triple overnight.
So what I like about that is great guests will move the needle at the condition that either they are big enough that people are just looking for content with them in it, right? You follow an influencer who does content himself. You want to hear him being interviewed as well to understand a bit the behind the scenes. So either you have a guest big enough like this, and the second way is to make your guest want to talk about the episode and to repost it and to publish it. And for that, you need to have, first of all, a great conversation with them, and then making it easy for them to reshare and having great assets. That's one part of the other thing, though. How do you make sure that you talk about the right stuff? Like, how do you inform yourself on what is it that your audience wants to consume so that you serve them exactly that, instead of like something that you like to talk about but that nobody cares about? How do you do that?
For me, I am very active in groups and Reddit and Quora, and you see what people are talking about in real time, and then you're like, oh, that's an interesting topic. I know a good guest that I would reach out to so that we could talk about something like that. So that's how I do my field research. I've got other people that have gotten to know me, a ton of these podcast introductors, I don't know what you call them, but they're coming to me and saying, hey, this is a hot topic right now. Here's a great guest for you. Will you have them on? And if they've done their homework, 9 times out of 10, I will. That's how I find my information right now. I just participating in the discussions that are happening. Like Sora 2 is taken off, right? So I have to cover that as a AI marketer. I mean, there's not a hotter tool right now. So you got to jump in when the fire's hot and go participate yourself. I've probably created 100 videos myself, and I found the tool very fascinating. It's not even close to being there yet. We're not going to produce movies anytime soon, but I say in a year or two, we're going to be able to produce some long feature films, and it's going to get interesting.
So you revealed two heavily guarded secrets here. I mean, I'm kidding. They're not secrets. We talk about it as well. But actually researching what your audience is currently looking for, Google Trends, keyword spreader, social media trends, answerthepublic.com. Reddit communities and Quora forums are amazing if you know where to look. So I love that you mentioned that, because this is something that we do. It's like, this is where the fun happens. You might even find some topics where people ask questions and they're not getting any answers. So if you position yourself as the authority with the answer, without being salesy, it's super important, especially on those platforms, you're creating authority instantly. And then it's about the long-term game, providing value for a long time enough. But I love this strategy. What's the main benefit that you got out of podcasting for that many years? Like, we talked about the challenges, building that audience, finding the stuff that people want to hear about. Now let's talk about, the outcome. What are some of the best benefits that you got out of your podcast?
Revenue is number one.
Straightforward.
Number two is credibility. And I definitely not an influencer, but I have a big voice in each of these areas I'm in: AI, tokenization, and e-commerce. So when somebody, let's just say you meet somebody through traditional marketing means, and they want to do business with you, and then they do their research, about you, and you got 100,000 hits on Google about everything that I've done. So that adds some credibility. I'm not saying that's the main factor, but it's one of the main factors when somebody wants to work with you is, hey, how legitimate is this person? What are people saying about him online? What can he move the needle for me? Because, he's online enough and he could put us on their platforms. Those are the main benefits.
Would you go about starting a podcast today if you had to, right? Starting from scratch, no audience, no followers, just your knowledge and your craft. How would you go about it? So first of all, would you do it? Like, is it still time to launch a podcast?
So I would do something on AI and robotics. It would be a podcast that I'd like to do. So, how is AI starting to impact robotics? So you'll be about a year or two early, but build up the audience now, and then when the trend hits, you'll be the top podcast. So I do something on AI and robotics. I mean, there's a lot of emerging fields, especially in the tokenization space, that you could tackle and just become an expert in. And then guess what? When that information's out there, where you're doing my strategy of bringing on the right guests, you're seen as the expert. And when you're seen as the expert, you make expert money.
I like that the first thing you went for was the theme and niche of the podcast. It's not like how would you do it or why even. It's like talk about stuff that people care about, AI and robotics. And that's interesting because AI, so what ChatGPT is November 2022?
I really look at it as version 3, ChatGPT 3, which was November 2023, I think. Anything before there was not very good in my mind. But once ChatGPT 3 hit, that's when I really started, okay, now it's going to hit consumer level.
What recommendations would you give for podcasters or wannabe podcasters, Mark, to start up their podcast right now in 2025? So obviously there is the content. There is trying to get your hands on great guests who are going to have a, big enough audience that you're going to be able to tap into them if you do things properly. What else? How do you go tactically about launching a podcast? Because the reason I'm asking this, barriers to entry have never been so low. It's so easy to launch a podcast right now.
Which is the problem, isn't it?
Exactly. So how do you go about that?
Well, first of all, you got to be interesting. And I'm not saying I'm the most interesting guy in the world, but you got to develop yourself as a host, whether it's you just talking to a microphone or you bringing on guests. You got to get good at it. And that could take some time. I mean, go look at Joe Rogan's first podcast. They were crap. He just stuck with it. And now, if not the top podcast or one of the top, he's very influential. That's first and foremost. And then second, it's having, what are your goals? Are your goals like mine? Is it to make money? Or your goals just to get your name out there and get advertising deals? Or are you just doing it to help people, which is great, which is fine. But it's a lot of work and a lot of effort, especially if you're trying to bring on guests. And if you're not being paid to do it, then either you have a trust fund or a wealthy spouse, which is great. More power to you. Just persevere through it. Develop your skills. Always work on yourself. Get feedback from friends and family that you trust, not somebody that's just patting you on the back saying, yeah, it was just fine. No, you don't want that feedback. What could you do better? Podcasting isn't for everybody. And you're right. The barriers to entry have never been lower. It's super easy to start one. To make it professional is different. That takes a lot of work. So I would invest in decent equipment to begin with, decent set, or at least things behind you, not like this. I have a whole different set when I do it. Don't spend a lot of money. Find that you're picking up traction. That's when you start making those additional investments, because you got to get to that level where people will see you as highly knowledgeable, but plus very professional, in my mind. Not for all podcasts, of course, but at least the ones that I'm doing on the business side.
So what's the next big thing for your podcast? What's the next big thing for you? Where are you putting your focus on?
My big focus is on I've written a book. It's in the editing phase right now. It's getting people to give quotes on the book, to promote the book when it comes out. That's my big effort for the next 6 months. I'm hoping to get this out before Christmas. From that perspective, I've got quite a few, clients that I'm working with, but you always want to develop the pipeline. You don't want to let it stay cold.
Indeed.
I'd say both of those things.
I love that this is just straight to the point and pure value. And I think that's the whole point of this podcast. One thing that I ask all my guests, Mark, to conclude this episode is the following. So Jeff Bezos, when he was building Amazon, right, he didn't try and guess what's going to change in 10 years or what's going to be the new innovation in 10 years. Or he was like, what is true today that will still be true in 10 years? And I like to tweak that question a bit for podcast. So you've been around for a long time when it comes to podcasting. Clearly, you figured out a model that works for you. What is it, in your opinion, that is true today in the podcasting space that will still be true in 10 years that people should double down on?
Wow, great question, because I think a lot of us will be replaced by AI voices, unfortunately, that sound and look like us. So what'll be true is good storytelling. So humans, by their very nature, relate to stories a lot better. That's why we love the movies. That's why we like TV shows. That's why we like influencers that could talk about mundane shit and we still enjoy listening to them or watching them. They're just naturally charismatic or funny, or interesting. I don't think that goes away. I don't see AI really replacing that, because AI is not human. Even when it's in a robot's form, it's not human. It doesn't feel. So it'd be very hard for an AI to mimic, not even mimic, but to create a new emotional state that it hasn't observed before in a certain situation for that individual. It's going to be very difficult for that to happen. So I still think storytelling and creative, humanized ideas don't go away in 10 years.
I think this is why podcasts, I don't know if we can say will prevail, because AI will have a role. I think what people crave is human connection. Now, there will be a point where we won't be able to make the difference anymore, but I'm suspecting that we're going to be having some form of regulations where we're going to have to say that this is AI generated or that there is AI in it. And that's why conferences have never been bigger right now, is because people want that human connection, meet people in person. Second best option after meeting in person is a podcast when it comes to content and education, at least. So I like that a lot. And the skill of storytelling for sure one, because again, a message properly told is a message that has an impact and brings business in, because that's what we are doing, B2B business. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to find out more about you, what you do, your podcast, where should they go?
Google AI Marketing Podcast and mine will show up, as well as find me on LinkedIn, Mark Fidelman on LinkedIn, or on X at Mark Fidelman. Those are the three main places that you can look for me.
We'll put all the links in the description. Mark, thank you so much for coming on Podcast Gurus.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.